So right now we're working on standard, well, we're blending in RI 6.3, which builds up to RI 6.6. And they are focusing on how an author elaborates, illustrates, and introduces a topic. And the reason why we did that was looking at our data. My first block, it was either about 80% that near mastered and only 2 who did not. So I don't really have to spend a lot of time with them on that standard. And the 2 students who did not master, they're just going to be working with me, and I created videos that go with the standard. And so during our enrichment time, they're going to be working on listening to that standard and really seeing how I broke the standard apart. They'll be using an interactive notebook and really looking at what did the question ask them, and then they're going back to see how did they answer the question, and now that they understand what it means when an author introduces. And then when it talks about illustrating, we used our graphic organizer. We talked about how they're painting a picture with words. And so now they understand that I'm looking for what did the author do to actually show that they were elaborating on a particular topic. So what I saw them do is they wanted to jump right into the actual detail, and that's not what the question asked them. They want to know the actual strategy. Like, did she use adjective? Did she use vivid verbs? So exactly. So they're working on that, and then just in a nutshell, explaining to them what this question is asking you. But we looked on, and again, I think like beacon assessment and integrated test is kind of different, because when I looked on RI 6.3 on the integrated test, I didn't see a question that says how does the author elaborate or illustrate or introduce. Yeah. So they need to know it because that's part of the standard, but with the question, it just says one of the key words was just basic questions like identify the mood or tone of the text, which goes together. I don't know what the real deal is, but the mock one,
as far as the depth of knowledge.
Yeah, it doesn't ask them like to go in detail. So so once they know it, I'd rather go high, and then if the text, brings them low, at least they understand that what the question is asking. So, and again, it might be different, and they might ask them how it illustrates or introduces, but which goes with how I blended it into author's point of view. The initial assessment, they did pretty good. With this one, they did pretty good on RI 6.6 with my first block. But the second block and third block is really where it was not all green. A couple of the students, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 mastered that standard with identifying the author's purpose. But I also had 9 near mastery and 4 who didn't master. So I'm kind of going to do the same thing with the videos, because I think the videos is more personal, where they really can sit down and actually hear me read it and hear me think aloud as I answer the questions. So I explained to them that even though they're making that connection with the standard of how does the author introduce, they got to understand the purpose of actually reading it. So I'm using the same text that I used for the first standard, and now because they have a good understanding of the text, now asking them to pull out information about the author's purpose or the point of view. So far, it's only day 2, but so far they kind of got a good understanding of the text in general. Right. So when it's time for them to actually identify the author's point of view, they'll be able to do it.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Correct. Okay, so even with you remember we talked about apples to apples, oranges to oranges. How are those students looking now? For example, Ebony.
Well, Ebony actually is definitely improving. I think she has the highest score in her block. Ebony is at 73%,
right.
And none of her standards she did not master. So with Ebony with ER, I'm focusing on her yellow and starting with the standard of So if I'm working on a whole group with RI63, I would have her doing a little advanced thing, like she might be creating her own text,
Yeah.
and then focusing on how she's going to introduce her story, how she's going to elaborate and illustrate, because she mastered that one.
Okay.
And then I had definitely some students that were on the bubble like that at 67 or 63%. And again, I try to gear it where it's individualized. So everybody, I didn't have one block where everybody did not master a particular subject. So for ER, I can really hone in. Like I chose RI63 first because I did have the majority of them that did not master that one. And it was either that, and it really was the terminology of illustrating and elaboration and introducing. But once I drilled down on really explaining to them how to understand that question, even with their assessment on Friday, it was a big improvement. It was like 67, 70, and 82.
Awesome.
So yeah, I think that I really think it's the video though, actually breaking down what this question is asking them instead of just assuming that they know it. And then with the iPads, it can read it to them.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
You don't have it, now
No
I know,
excuse.
So if they don't master it, I know it's the comprehension part and not the actual reading piece.
Right, and I also like the fact of how you have them break down in their interactive notebook.
Yeah.
Because once they do understand what the question is asking, that has made a difference. I did want to see how it worked from when you first started it, and then knowing what type of question.
Yeah, I think, but doing it this way actually really worked. I don't know why I didn't have that, epiphany a long time ago, but actually having them write down the actual standard and really breaking down what is an individual, what is an event, what is a idea, and then talking about introduction, because this is really plot. When you talk about introduction, they know to go to the actual beginning of the text and not the end of